Hey guys, Ronnie Calhoun here with Miss Lou Champion Spotlight. This evening we've got former Vidalia, long-term Vidalia mayor of 24 years, 12 years as councilman, Mr. Hyram Copeland. How are you?
I'm doing great, Ronnie. How about you?
It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Good to be here today.
So you look good.
Well, I feel good for 82 years old.
I feel pretty bad for 44 right there, I mentioned former mayor and everything. We're not here to talk politics
no
today.
politics. I'm out of politics.
Yeah, we're here to talk. We're here to talk about a former legend, not only here in the Miss Lou, but worldwide, international legend that you happen to know very well, had a very close relationship with, and related to.
Right.
And that is the late great Mickey Gilley.
Absolutely.
So I think this is I'm really, and Mickey passed in May of this year, and it was just kind of heartbreaking, you know.
It was. I talked to him 2 weeks before he passed away, and it's ironic we didn't talk about his illness or anything. I think he just found out, and within 2 weeks he had passed away. But when we called, I tried to talk to him once a month or periodically. Mm-hmm. And when I called and talked to him about 2 or 3 weeks before he passed away, it's ironic. He was talking about, I said, how things are going. Did ever mention health? He said, well, I've got a problem. I've lost my keyboard man, which is very important because of the fact that in 2009 he fell and broke his neck and he lost the use of his fingers and et cetera. And so he was worried about getting a new keyboard man because he was getting ready to go on tour for the month of May. Okay. And I think all of a sudden he found out that he had incurable cancer, and he lived 2 weeks.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he was
still playing, and
so he wasn't sick leading up to that point, really. I mean, he was sick, obviously, but he didn't feel bad or anything like that.
You know, it's ironic, Ronnie. In all the years after he broke his neck, not one time did I hear him complain. He accepted it. He went on about his business, and he continued his career. And a lot of people probably would have retired after that, but he did not. He had tremendous fortitude, and again, I miss him very much.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do. The music industry,
yes,
definitely will mourn.
Yes,
he's a big loss.
Yes, you know, I started out. Mickey and Jerry and Jimmy are 5 years older than I am, and Jimmy's actually 6 years older than I am. And I lived with my grandmother and grandfather back when I was about 10 years old. And Mickey and Jerry, sometimes Jimmy, but mostly Mickey and Jerry, would come. My Aunt Norma Jean was the only one that had a piano, except the Assembly of God Church. And they would come down and play on that piano. And the biggest mistake I made in my life was I was outside shooting marbles instead of inside listening to them play the piano. But it was fantastic. And, you know, at 10 years old, you don't realize then what was going to be the future as far as their careers were concerned. But I never forget that we would go up. My grandmother and grandfather owned cafes, about 3 cafes after the Second World War. And they would go up to my grandmother and grandfather's cafe, eat a hamburger, listen to the jukebox. I'd go with them naturally. Free food. But again, I lived with my grandmother and grandfather. And they would go back down to my Aunt Norma Jean's and play that song exactly the way it sounded on that jukebox. It was amazing.
So both Jerry Lee and Mickey.
Yes. And sometimes
they would
Jimmy,
just hear
I don't really remember Jimmy too much, but I do remember Jerry and Mickey coming back down and playing. All of them played by ear, which is ironic.
Wow. So what ages were they then?
15, 16.
What ages did they start playing? Is that about the time?
Probably.
Or do you even remember?
Probably 12, 13, 14. Because they all went to the Assembly of God Church, which I attended when I was 5. I left for about 5 years. My dad was instruction. Came back, lived with my grandmother and grandfather when I was 10. And we all went down to the little Assembly of God Church on Texas Avenue. If you haven't been there, you need to go there. It's what I call the smallest, biggest church I've ever seen.
Okay.
And what I mean by that, when you're small and you go into an Assembly of God Pentecostal church, which is an experience, we all, family, went and attended that church. Well, they all played and sang in the choir, and I guess that's where they got, to a certain extent, some of their musical background. And back then, he didn't have any idea what the future was going to hold as far as all three of them. Now, you got to understand, these are three people that came from a little small town of Fairleigh, Louisiana, one of the biggest evangelists, two of the biggest country music stars in our country, went to that little small Assembly of God church. In fact, Jimmy's daddy was a minister there along with his mother and his sister singing in the choir. I remember it as vivid as it was yesterday. And so it was an experience just listening to them play, and then, of course, coming down to my Aunt Noma Jean's and playing there on the piano. That was the beginning of basically their musical aspirations, or what was at that particular point. And then, of course, I want to go back to the Assembly of God Church. Never have I ever seen a church like that before. You had the Swaggarts, you had the McLaughlins from Faraday, the Hirons, the Lewises, the Gilleys, all attended a small church.
That's some pretty powerful music.
And it was just
family,
a tremendous experience in seeing those individuals through the years, and then how they progressed as far as careers were concerned.
I'm thinking of the people that have branched off of those names that you just said. It's just name after name popping through my head.
Well, I was thinking the other day on Mississippi Avenue in Faraday, which they've now named after Mickey Gilley Avenue. From that one little street, you had two mayors, one sheriff, one state senator, and two country music legends. And also Jimmy's grandmother lives 3 houses down from my grandmother and grandfather in that one little section of Mississippi Avenue. So that's that's unbelievable on one small street like that, especially in a small community like Faraday, Louisiana.
Wow. So those guys, they weren't interested in shooting marbles. They were just they were into music at that point.
No,
that was their love at that point.
In fact, Jerry really got his start to a certain extent. He'd come over and played in some of these nightclubs in Natchez. This was in the early 50s.
Okay.
And that's basically where he got his start. And then he went from there. He was 17, 18, 19 years old. And, of course, he went from there to Memphis, to Sun's record. And, of course, that's a story within itself.
Oh, yeah.
And just his career just exploded after that.
Man, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what was your first memory of Mickey as far as real music, like outside of the house? And it was like, oh, he's has a music career. You know?
Again, I reiterated, I live with my Aunt Renee and Uncle Arthur, one of the finest Christian women I have ever known in my life. Her and my Aunt Edna, my cousin Edna, who's Mickey's sister. But I stayed with my Aunt Renee and Uncle Arthur. And I remember first they didn't. I took them to Houston, Texas. This is something that's vivid in my mind. That Mickey had open heart surgery in the early 60s, which Dr. DeVecca then, it was exploratory, and he had some bowel issues and so on like that. So he was operated on there, and I took my Aunt Renee and Uncle Arthur there. And I've never seen so many tubes come out of a human being in all my life. My Aunt Renee said then, he will be fine, he will be okay. And again, this was just starting open heart surgery back then.
Yeah.
So I remember that very vividly. And then I remember that Mickey played in small nightclubs in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'd take my Aunt Renee and Uncle Arthur there. My Aunt Renee wouldn't go in nightclubs because it's the devil's work, she would say. And she stayed at the house, and my Uncle Arthur and I went. But I remember, Ronnie, if you see this room right here, that's about the size of the nightclub that he was playing in. This was probably in 1964 in that time frame, 63, 64. And I remember taking her and my uncle there. And then I remember that. But then I remember the time that Room Full of Roses in 1974. And it was about 10 years. Now, it took Mickey a longer time to break into the industry because he was so much, they said, like Jerry in the way he played his piano and some of his singing. But I remember very vividly in 1974 with Room Full of Roses came out, and it was his first #1 hit. And we went, I took my Aunt Renee and Uncle Arthur to Jackson, Mississippi, the Coliseum, sold out. Couldn't get another seat in it, him and Johnny Lee and his band. And what I remembered so much about that, I said, here I am, remembering when he played in this little bitty nightclub. It may have been 25 or 30 people, maybe a little more than that. And here we are now, and thousands of people at the stadium in Jackson, Mississippi, completely full, completely sold out. And so I remember that. And so then, of course, he had 17 number one hits during his career. I remember in 19...
I didn't realize he had that many number
17
ones.
number one hits.
That's a lot of
during
hits.
his career. And then I remember when Urban Cowboy came out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just exploded. Let me tell you my luck again. Is I was running for state office, and Mickey came down to do a benefit for me. And at the city auditorium, maybe half full, 40% full, 2 weeks before Urban Cowboy came out. If I'd have waited another 3 weeks, I believe I'd have sold out with Urban Cowboy coming out with he and Johnny Lee and his band and everything.
Yeah.
But I remember him also, his band used to stop by my Aunt Renee Office. Loved her cooking. She was a tremendous cook. And he would stop with his bus. They would go in and eat. I'd go in and visit with them and so on like that. But amazing career. A tremendous individual. What you saw Mickey Gilley was Mickey Gilley.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud to say that he was my cousin. I'm proud of him.
Where was he recording at and stuff? So
Houston, Texas.
Houston?
Some of his first recording was in Houston, Texas. See, he had some local hits.
And that was the Room Full of Roses that he recorded?
The story on Room Full of Roses is that he had put out a record. This lady had about 50 or 60 jukeboxes in the Houston area. And she liked the Room Full of Roses. He had another song on the flip side of it. They thought that was going to be the bigger hit. So all of a sudden, they started playing the record on her jukeboxes. And I call them jukeboxes. And then it just exploded, The Room Full of Roses. And it went national. And, of course, it's history now.
Is that what they would call the B-side? Is that
the B-side?
So that was the B-side. Okay, so that was kind of the throwaway song, right?
Right.
You had your hit song on the A side, I'm guessing.
That's correct.
And then the B-side was just an extra, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so the B-side actually was the one that took off for him. Do you know what was on the other side, by any chance?
My mind's blank now. I remember what it was, but they thought that was going to be I can't remember off the
Yeah. But, they thought that was going to be the big hit.
They thought that was going to be the big hit.
Wow.
And it wasn't. Room Full of Roses. And
so where was Jerry Lee during this period? Were they both kind of simultaneous? Was Jerry Lee already kind of taken off at
Jerry
this
Lee
period?
had already taken off. Again,
he was in Memphis.
He was in Memphis, and he was playing worldwide. And again, there was about a 10 to 15 year time frame from Mickey from playing in Houston and little nightclub we're talking about until Room Full of Roses, and Jerry again was known all over the world as a killer.
The killer, yeah.
Now Jerry's daddy was my grandmother's brother.
Okay.
So, Jerry Lee Lewis's daddy was my grandmother's brother. I'll go into the connection. Somebody says, "How in the world could that be?" Jimmy Lee Swaggart's grandmother was my grandmother's sister. Connection there.
Okay.
As far, and Mickey's daddy was my grandfather's brother. Mickey's mother was my grandmother's sister. You had several of the Lewis women married to Gilley men back at the turn of the century at Snake Ridge, right out of Mangum, Louisiana. And so
that before we came on, you were. I thought that was interesting because you just said Gilley.
Yeah.
So originally it was Gilley.
Originally it was Gilley.
Okay. Originally it was Gilley.
Gilley. They came from France at the turn of the century.
Yeah.
And it was spelled Gilley. But my great grandfather, they sent him up to North Louisiana to some land they owned to farm and take care of it. And naturally, when you go from South Louisiana to North Louisiana, they said Gilley. They got to North Louisiana in a slow southern drawl. They said Gilley.
Gilley.
And of course, they still call it Gilley up around the Mangum area. All my kinfolks and the people up there.
Really?
Yeah, I have a cousin that's a sheriff, Greg Gilley, in Richland Parish.
Okay.
So they all still call it Gilley up there, though.
Okay. Yeah. And man, that's interesting. So what about? So Mickey's career was kind of taken off and everything. Where does the Urban Cowboy thing fit into this? Was it towards the end of his career? Was it when he was taken off? Or
no? As I said, Room Full of Roses came out in 1974.
Okay.
Urban Cowboy in 1980.
Okay.
And when that came out, his career just exploded because of John Travolta, Urban Cowboy. I mean, everybody practiced seeing the movie.
Bud and Sissy.
So once that came out, then again it followed up with 17 number ones.
So what about so this is a bar in Pasadena, Texas, right? South of Houston.
It's called the biggest
honky tonk.
Honky tonk. It's called the largest nightclub in the country was Gilley's in Pasadena, Texas.
So Mickey opened this nightclub.
He had his partner Sherwood.
Okay.
His name was Sherwood. They opened it together, and of course,
and then somebody
Mechanical Bull.
Yeah.
As you well know, it is again when the Urban Cowboy came out.
So somebody from it said, "Hey, we want to do a movie on this place."
They called, and Mickey said, "It'll never work. People are not going to watch anything like it." And then when they mentioned John Travolta's name, he said, they may have something there. I heard him tell the story many times. And so once Urban Cowboy came out, everywhere he went, he was sold out. And then once his career started slowing down a little bit, he went to Branson, Missouri.
Yeah.
Opened a nightclub there, and real well there. And in fact, up in the latter part of his years, he sold that nightclub and went on tours, mainly on tours.
Okay. Yeah. And I've got a cousin up there still to this day, Tommy Riles.
Yeah.
He's knows. We were joking before we came on. We're probably related 2 or 3 different ways.
As I told you earlier, my daddy worked with the Riles after the Second World War, and in the carpenter trade, and built houses all in Faraday and so on. I knew most of your people.
Yeah.
In fact, one of your cousins was a former girlfriend of mine, Carolyn Magoon.
Oh yeah. She's a sweetheart. She is. I love Carolyn. So you got. I'm just trying to paint this picture in my head.
Yeah.
So at this point, let's start with the Urban Cowboy thing. You've got. I'm just trying to tie in everybody together and where everybody kind of went. So you've got Mickey kind of over in Houston doing his thing over there. You've got Jerry Lee. Where was he at that point? Was he still up in Memphis?
Still up in Memphis.
Okay, and then what about Swagger?
He was in Baton Rouge. His ministry was in Baton Rouge, and so he still has it there. And this is basically all 3 of them at one time. Career had just exploded. Jimmy was one of the biggest evangelists in the world, and of course Jerry, Mickey, and almost at the same time, their careers exploded together. So
Jimmy is a musician in his own right. I mean,
Jimmy is excellent. I remember him at 15, 16 years old singing at the Assembly of God Church, and that's where he got his background from. But yes, he a lot of religious albums. I don't know how many. Yeah, I'm sure some of them were number one, but you can still buy them. In fact, Sundays, sometimes I listen to his sermons on television.
Yeah. What are the age differences? Which one was the oldest?
Jimmy's the oldest. He's 87. Jerry's 86, about 4 months younger than Jimmy. And Mickey was the youngest. He was 86 when he died. He's born in 1936.
Okay.
And I think Jimmy and Jerry were born in 1935.
Okay.
It's ironic that you asked that question. There was about 5. My sister, my Aunt Norma Jean, Jimmy, Jerry, and Mickey all were born within 10 months of each other in Faraday. And they were all kin to each other. And so it's, can you imagine, within that period of time, you had 5 or 6 cousins born within a year of each other. And all of them started at Faraday High School and going to Faraday High School.
So they've got some pretty famous alumni. There's colleges that can't say that they've got people as famous as Faraday High does.
I was trying to think of all the people that come from Faraday during that period. You had Phoebe Whitaker. You had Howard K. Smith. I don't know if you're probably 4 years time. He used to be a big broadcaster.
Okay.
So, but all came from that little town.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It was an amazing little town. It right after the Second World War, it was my grandmother and grandfather owned 3 cafes, stayed open 24 hours a day. People returning from the war. The oil field industry had a boom during that period of time in Faraday. So plus you had Faraday football at that particular time. Had set a national record on 54 straight games without a defeat. So it was always said if you want to rob anything in Faraday, rob it on a Friday night because everybody's at the football game.
My mom would talk about, I think she briefly, or I don't know how long, but she would talk about working at the cafe or something for a little while.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the same.
I had a date with your mother one time.
Okay, yeah. I think we talked about that a lot. But yeah,
sweet lady.
Yeah,
sweet lady.
She'd tell, I'd hear stories about Faraday back in those days. And so what about the three cousins growing up? Were they real tight, or were they?
They kept in touch with each other. Of course, Jimmy was, in religious evangelist work, and Mickey and Jerry had their careers, and I'm sure they would. Jerry and Jimmy were closer than Mickey and Jimmy were. Mickey and Jerry were close. They'd keep in contact with each other.
Okay.
I know when Mickey would come down sometimes, used to be Huntington High School. I don't know if you remember Huntington High School.
Oh, yeah.
And they would do benefits at the old. I'm trying to think of my mind's gone blank. There used to be a little place over in Faraday, and they would come down and do a benefit for the Huntington School, and Mickey would play. And I'll never forget one night, Mickey was playing the piano. It was so out of tune. He said, "Man, I can't hardly play this piano." About the time Jerry Lee Lewis walked in, he said, "Scoot over, Gilley." He called him Gilley. He said, "Scoot over, Gilley." He started playing that piano like it was not out of tune. He said, Mickey told me, "I've never seen anything like this in my life. There's no way in the world he should be able to play that piano because it's so far out of tune." But that's how great they were. All of it's God-given talent, which is amazing. They play by ear. A lot of their musical careers started again at the little Assembly of God church, and just God-given talent that they all were blessed with that.
Were they competitive growing up?
Not really. And some people asked me that question before, but again, Jerry started his career out 19, 20, 21 years old, if he was that old, and I mean, with Elvis Presley and I'm trying to think of Johnny Cash.
Yeah, is that Carl Perkins?
Carl Perkins started their career at about the same time. I want to say, 1954, 55, in that range, 1954, 55. And so they all started their career out at that particular time. And so then again, Jerry, his career started, I'd say 15 years before Mickey ever made a hit, if not longer. And the reason for it is that their playing style was so similar. And it always hurt Mickey to a certain extent. But he never said anything negative about Jerry. He was proud of Jerry.
Yeah.
He said, maybe one day I'll make a hit. And he did. And of course, Jimmy, God-given talent. I mean, if you listen to some of his albums, religious albums, they're some of the greatest ever made.
And he's a great singer too,
He's a great singer and a great preacher.
Yeah. Did any of the three ever do any collaborations of any sort, or?
Mickey and Jerry did.
Did they?
Yeah, Mickey and Jerry did. They played. In fact, you can go on YouTube and you'll see where they played some together. They get together periodically and play some of the music together. In fact, I watched the other night. There was a segment on with Jerry and Mickey playing together. So when Mickey passed away, they started playing a lot of his old songs and a lot of film clips of it.
What was his biggest hit?
Room Full of Roses.
Room Full of Roses.
Room Full of Roses. That turned his career around.
What were some of his number ones off? Stand by Me.
Stand by Me. The Girls Get Prettier at Closing Time.
Oh, that was a great one.
That was a great hit. City Lights. Overlooked an Orchid.
Yeah.
I should have made a list of them, but
no, I'm just trying to go through them in my brain.
I mean, once you make that first hit, generally, most of the time, the next several will be a hit.
Yeah,
and that's what his career did.
Do you know if he wrote any, or was it?
He wrote some of his music.
Did he?
Yes.
Okay. What about Jerry Lee? Did he write any?
Yeah, Jerry wrote some of his.
He might have made some of them up on the.
Jerry Lee Lewis is Jerry Lee Lewis. He's a killer.
The killer. That's right.
I remember when Jerry first made a hit. He came back to Faraday, little nightclub we had in Faraday, packed it and everything else. Got up there and said, and he played that thing. He said, and this is from the killer. But next time I seen Jerry, he came down. All of them loved home. They loved Faraday, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. They never forgot about it. Jerry would come down and do some benefits, and Mickey, and of course Jimmy had his career, and but Mickey and Jerry came back periodically, Faraday. And they mentioned Faraday, as you heard Jerry Lou Lewis say, I'm from Faraday, Louisiana, and so was Mickey.
Yeah.
So they had great careers.
How would you say, personality-wise, everybody I think knows that the Killer's personality is big and bold. What about Mickey? Is he more? Did he have a big personality too?
Had a big personality too.
Did
he? Jerry Lee Lewis is Jerry Lee Lewis, and I love him to death. He had a great personality, but Mickey was more of a personal type. Not to say that Jerry wouldn't, because Jerry's always been real nice to me through the years. Mm-hmm. But Mickey was, I was again had a bigger relationship with Mickey because I lived with his mother and daddy, and we were closer to him. But he was more of a people person, mm-hmm. a close relationship. He never met a stranger. Yeah. Once you met Mickey Gilley, you knew him and he knew you. And Jerry had a great personality too, but Mickey was a people person. Yeah. And obviously he was a smart business guy. He was. You know what's ironic about it? None of them graduated from high school. Really? None of them graduated from high school. Of course, Jimmy went on to some of the seminars, etc., and so on like that. Uh-huh. But Mickey and Jerry never graduated. And Mickey got a pilot license flying twin-engine planes and never graduated from high school. So yes, they knew what they were doing. Listen, that's interesting that you said that. That triggers something for me. What did they ever have any other jobs? What were their jobs? Outside of music? Mickey got married when he was about 17. Him and his first wife moved to Houston, Texas, and he worked for his father-in-law. I think he was in the electrical business, and Mickey worked for him for a few years. And then he started playing at little small nightclubs, still working as an electrician. And I think he had other various jobs. But Jerry, I think Jerry's been playing ever since he's 17, 18 years old. And so he's never been on a job interview. I don't think so. Now, he may have been, but he's a killer. Yeah. What about Jimmy? Do you know? Jimmy's always preached. Yeah. He started preaching. He's 15, 16 years old. I never forget that his mother made this statement now when he wasn't but 7, 8, 9 years old. He'll be the biggest evangelist this country has ever seen. She made that statement when he was 7, 8 years old. And he became that. So real religious. The whole family, the Lewises, the Gilleys, the McLaughlins, the Herons, the Swaggarts, again, went to that little small Assembly of God church. Mm-hmm. And they were all very religious. And if you're Pentecostal, you generally don't change much from that. Now, I go to the Baptist church, and I always tell my Sunday school members that I am a Baptist with a Pentecostal background. But you never forget that. I never forgot that little church. And I still go by there once a month or periodically just to look at it and remember all the memories that were there. Yeah. My dad would go up to the Pentecostal church as he started in his last few years. He would go up and he told Brother Howington, he said, I'm not Pentecostal, but he said, I never felt closer to God than when you play your music. Yep. He said, it's something about it that I feel closer to the Lord than ever. And it's funny how different people, that music can get you there, can't it? They can do that. Mickey, just before he died, my Aunt Rennie always made this statement to me and others. She said, before he dies, he'll make sure that he gets right with the Lord, him and my Uncle Arthur. Mm-hmm. And she did that. In fact, Mickey made the statement to Jerry Lee when he called him, Jimmy Lee, when he called him, he said, Jimmy, I've gotten right with the Lord, and everything's okay. He said, Mickey, I'm proud, and I'm glad of it. And so, again, this was right before he passed. Right before he passed away. And my Aunt Rennie always said, I want to make sure they get to heaven. Yeah. And I know right now she's up there with joy with both of them up there, all my kin people. Yeah. But a unique family. As far as religion is concerned, very religious. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we could talk for hours about it, and we could. I mean, we'll come back sometime and we'll just talk about
Jerry Lee or Jimmy. You know, we can.
Yeah.
They're also fascinating.
Well, I told you earlier that I'll be 82 years old in December, and most of my people that are 5, 6, 7 years older than I am, they're gone. Mm-hmm. And I always remember the memories that I had with them coming up, the good times and the bad times. Uh-huh. But I cherish that friendship with all my kin folks, and they'll be here next Friday, September 30th. A lot of my people are coming from North Louisiana for Mickey's memorial, so I'm excited about seeing them. Everything.
Yeah, and the reason that I wanted you to come in and talk to me a little bit about this is because these stories need to live forever. They need to be shared. They need to be told. Before we kind of get out of here, I just want to give you the chance. I think this is going to reach a lot of people out there, and I think this is going to be much bigger than the Miss Lou. This particular interview. He's got fans all over the world. So what would you want to say to his fans throughout the world, not maybe as a musician? What would you want them to know about him as a person?
Well, I said earlier, what you saw in Mickey Gilley was Mickey Gilley. He never met a stranger. I never heard him say anything negative about anybody in all the years that I knew him. And he got that upbringing from his mother and his daddy. And he was just an outstanding person, and he was a good friend of mine. I miss him dearly, but we're looking forward to the day we'll see again.
That's right. Well, Mr. Hyram, I'm grateful for you to stop in and talk to us today. And this is some really cool stories. Yeah.
I'm just scratching the surface. If I could go back to a lot of them, but with my family again. But I enjoyed them all and enjoyed the times we had with them. I'm sorry that some of them are leaving us. Yeah. But again, we'll meet again.
Yeah, that's right. No doubt about it. And they have left legacies. Absolutely. Big shoes to fill, I can tell you that.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me over. Yeah. I enjoyed talking to you. And
so I hope that you guys watching this has enjoyed the stories as much as I have. I want to say thank you to all of our awesome partners who make it possible for us to share these stories with the world and with Miss Lou. God bless everybody out there watching today. And as always, have a champion day.
Hey y'all, it's Juliana Wallace. And if you like what we're doing here at Miss Lou Champion Spotlight, make sure to like, follow, and share on all of our social media platforms. It costs you nothing, and it helps us continue to spread positivity all throughout the Miss Lou.
Welcome to your new hospital, Trinity Medical. Located in Faraday, Trinity Medical is the only acute care facility in the Tri-Parish area. Here you will find an active pursuit of holistic health, a strong, honest group of clinicians, and a consciousness of others that transcends the 80,000 square feet committed to you and your loved ones. Trinity Medical. People you know, caring for people you love.
Hey guys, Ronnie Calhoun here with Miss Lou Champion Spotlight. Our friends at Natchez Heating and Cooling are here for you. They make sure you never have to worry about your home's health or efficiency. When you need them, they show up. It's as simple as that. So call Natchez Heating and Cooling for all of your HVAC needs.
Hey y'all, I'm Juliana Wallace.
And I'm Ronnie Calhoun. Make sure to check out our social media pages and our website for upcoming episodes of Miss Lou Champion Street Interviews.
We're going to be giving away some awesome prizes. So keep an eye out for us because you may be our next winner.